All right, we are working on a 2005 Subaru Forester. We are replacing both the left and right driver passenger wheel bearings. And as you can see, we've got a little bit of rust going on, but just some quick steps. This is the process we're going to be doing. We're going to remove this axle nut. This is flattened out into this little groove into the axle shaft. I've already got that out of the way. And then we also have two bolts that hold the caliper on. We'll be removing those. We have a bolt here holding your ABS sensor in place, so we're going to be removing that one. And then we also have another one down here, so we'll be pulling that sensor completely out. And then we have these two bolts here. This top one is a cammed bolt, and it will change the camber of your front wheel. So we do want to mark it on this side. There are marks on the bolt itself. I've already done the passenger side, and all those markings just happen to line up to where I had a really good reference to put it right back where it's supposed to be. If you're unable to do that, then you are going to be taking a trip to the alignment shop. So, and then we've got another bolt down here on the lower control arm. And that one, I'll get better lighting. It's just a real quick walkthrough of what we're going to be doing. So we're going to be taking that bolt out of the lower control arm and these top two bolts out. The whole point of this is we need to be able to better position the spindle, because we need to press the bearings out. We're not taking the spindle completely off of the car. We are leaving the tie rod in connected, and we are just going to be laying this down and then getting our jigs set up to press the new race in, the old race out, obviously. Yeah, there's some work to be done. We'll be using a slide hammer to pop the hub out. That way we can gain access to pushing the race and some other things. So yeah, really quickly. So we've got the axle nut, the two bolts holding the upper spindle. We got one bolt in the bottom spindle, and then we've got two bolts holding the caliper. We're not actually separating the caliper from the bracket. We're taking the whole entire assembly off. It's just a lot easier to do that way, and we will hang it up to the spring and out of the way. And likewise, the ABS sensor, we're going to be moving that out of the way. So it doesn't take too long to get that done. What's going to take the most time is to actually press the new bearing, or actually pressing the old parts out and pressing the new parts in, to put it simple. But realistically, I think once you have all your tools gathered and you have all the things that you need, this is probably a 4 to 5 hour job. All right, so we are prepared we got our 3/4 inch drive impact set up with a 32 millimeter socket on the end. Our vehicle is being supported by jack stands on both sides. This is actually very important for the way that we're doing this, is you have to jack up the whole front of the vehicle and support it. Do not support it by your control arms. We need the control arms to move freely. The reason why we're jacking up both sides of the vehicle is you have this sway bar, which I made a mistake in the past of, on a different vehicle, jacking up only one side, and then I had the pressure of the sway bar trying to balance everything out, and it made it impossible for me to put the nuts back in the upper spindle. So, all right, let's get this spindle nut here removed, or the axle shaft nut, and all right, so I was finally able to get the axle nut removed. It took, I had to heat it up with a torch, and I had to use the handle of my jack and a breaker bar to break it loose initially, and then I put the 3/4 inch impact on it and got off there the rest of the way. So next we're going to remove the speed sensor. That way I don't take a chance on damaging it or the line. Plus I need for this to be able to lay down completely flat. So I'm going to be removing this bolt here and this bolt up here, and that is going to require I think it's a 12mm socket. Yes, it is a 12mm socket. All right, so we're gonna get these removed, and then I'll be back. Hopefully I don't break these up. All right, so we have got our ABS sensor has been removed, and we're going to tie it off up here along with our caliper. As soon as we get it removed, we have removed the lower bolt from the spindle. I don't know if you can see that very well. And that was so we can get out this bolt here for the caliper bracket. So we're not actually taking these bolts loose. We are taking the 2 bolts out of the caliper bracket and sliding this all off into one unit. And then we'll tie our caliper off up here on our spring. I'm just going to use a piece of solid core copper wire to tie that up. I like to use bungee cord sometimes, but the solid core wire keeps it from flopping around a little bit. Not a big deal either way, as long as it's secured and you're not putting stress on this hose. And we have removed it's a 19mm bolt from our lower ball joint. That way we can lift this whole entire thing up out of here as soon as we take the slide hammer and pop our hub out. So far, again, just to reiterate, we got 2 bolts here. We got 2 bolts holding on the caliper bracket. We had our axle nut. We had the bolt holding our sensor and our ABS sensor, and then we had a little bracket tying the line back over to here. So not a whole lot of stuff to break loose. It's just awfully rusty under here, and chances of stripping or breaking bolts is highly likely. So next we'll get our caliper brackets, or bolts out of our caliper bracket, and get that tied off out of the way. We'll get the rotor off, which it should just slide right off of here. If not, there's 2 threaded holes in the rotor, and you can put bolts into that, which will help break that loose if it happens to be seized up. This bolt here in the upper part is it's a cammed bolt, and that controls the camber of your suspension. So it does have marks on it. I'm gonna take a piece of emery cloth, clean this up real quick for you. Well, that didn't really help. Well, hold on. Well, you can kind of see it now. Have to wipe that off. Yeah. Anyways, so there's marks already on here, so you can either just line that back up the way you found it, or you can take a paint marker, or maybe even like a chisel and a punch and make your own mark. Actually, you know what? On this one, I'm just going to take a chisel and a punch and make my own mark. That way I put it right back in the same spot, and hopefully you don't have to make a trip to the alignment shop. Okay, so here we have our caliper removed. Like I said, we just pulled the whole entire bracket and caliper assembled together, and then we've tied it off to the spring, and we've moved our ABS sensor over, get everything out of the way. Now we're getting ready to put on our slide hammer and hopefully pop this hub out fairly simple and easily. Yeah, it's never that easy. Last time I had to use a air hammer and a slide hammer at the same time to pop the one out on the passenger side. The driver's side is actually a little bit worse than the passenger side, so maybe it'll come out easier. Worse is in the bearings have failed to a higher extent than the passenger side. So yeah, hopefully This will pop out nice and easy. And I've made my marks here on my upper bolt so I can get the camber back to where it's supposed to be. All right, well, now let's get the slide hammer out and get this hub off of here so we can start getting our bearings pressed out and in. Okay, and you can see here we have got our slide hammer hooked up with our hub pulling attachment in place, and lug nuts are tightened down. And at this point, it's just going to be a matter of a whole lot of that and probably an air hammer to help out. All right, we shall return as soon as we get this done. Okay, so we have successfully pulled our hub out. It's probably taken me about, a good 45 minutes to an hour to get that out of there. Yeah, these things don't come out easy. Or, I mean, unless your bearings are completely trashed. But, yeah, so that's where we're at now. So now we're going to remove this bolt and then pop that up and lay it over and start getting our race pressed out, and then we will press the new race in and put our bearings in and reassemble. We might actually... Okay, so for whatever reason on this side of the car, this is the driver's side, I did not have to remove the lower ball joint to be able to remove this shaft. I was actually able to just pull everything out of the way. So now what we have to do is, man, this lighting is horrible. We need to remove, there's a sill here. Once we get that sill out, then on the back side there's also a retaining clip. Once we get the retaining clip out, then we can set up the press rig and press the race out. So okay, so we have our retaining clip removed from the back here, and we got our seal out. So now we're going to start getting our press kit fit in there and get this inner race pushed out. We're going to use the old rear bearing in the front. We're going to put this press on the front, and that's going to push the race out the back, and then we're going to put this larger one in the back, and I'll return as soon as I get it set up so you can see what that looks like. And that's all right, and here we have got our press kit set up, and so got this sleeve, and then inside there we've got the bearing that came out of the back here. It's going to push against that race and then shove the race inside of this giant sleeve here. We got our wrench on the back here to hold that steady, and then you're probably not supposed to, but I'm going to put an impact on this to help push it out, and hopefully it goes nice and smooth as soon as we get there. Okay, so we have got our race pressed out. Now we're getting ready to put our new race in. Now these bearings, I've seen a lot of people complain saying they failed quickly. Here's this grease that it comes with. This looks like it's just like a lithium, maybe a packing grease or something. And if you look inside, these bearings are not packed. So if you just pull these bearings out of the box and stick them on your car, yeah, it might last maybe 300, maybe 500 miles, but then it's going to fail. There is no grease on these. The only grease is here on the outside. It's a very thin layer. These need to be packed. You need to pack the grease inside of here. You don't even want to be able to see any of these rollers. That's how much grease you want on it. And then you want to pack more grease. You want all the grease in the world, and we're using a blue, it's like a hybrid grease. But yeah, like I said, it looks like this stuff just comes with a little bit of lithium slapped on it, maybe just to keep them from rusting or something. until they are actually installed. So yeah, we're going to be get this cleaned up, get all that lithium. I'm just going to call it packing grease for now because I'm not really sure what that is, but that's definitely not something that's going to be meant for a high speed or high loads. All right, here's our setup for installing our race. So you can see we've got a large cylinder on this end and just a cap on that end. And now we're just going to pull our race through. And as soon as we get that done, then we will install the front seal and bearing, and then we will press our spindle into that bearing, and then we're going to press the back bearing onto the spindle and then button this up and we should be done. All right, we now have our new race pressed in. I'm going to clean up this lithium grease or packing grease, whatever that's supposed to be. And then we're going to pack our bearings with grease and get our spindle. There's a seal that goes here, so we'll get the bearing set in place. We'll put the seal on, and then we'll get our new spindle, or our new hub, and then we'll start pressing our hub into the first bearing. Once that is done, then we will press the second bearing in from the back onto the new hub, and then we should be able to reinsert our drive shaft and start bolting all this back together.
Okay.
All right, so as I explained, these bearings, they come with some lithium grease on them. Wipe all that off. As you can see, these bearings are not packed, so you want to put a big giant glob of bearing grease in your hand, and then you'll start scraping it from this way forward until all that grease will fit into this bearing. So just like that, we'll get both bearings packed, and then we will get these installed on the car. Okay, so now we have our outer bearing put in. Now we've got our new seal that we have packed with some grease also. And now we're going to take this rubber mallet and lightly tap it into place. Oops, there we go. All right, this is going to be a two-handed job. Anyway, so we want to tap around here lightly and get it pushed in evenly, kind of like when you're tightening down lug nuts on a car. You don't want to go all gung-ho and smack one side in. So I'm going to get one of my presses and hit it dead center to push this in evenly all the way around. Okay, so now we now have our hub pressed into place, or not our hub. We now have our seal tapped into place. We used one of our press sleeves here that fit the outer diameter of this, the metal part of it, and then we've tapped that into place. We've applied lots of grease. Lots of grease is good in these situations. Normally I don't like things to look sloppy or messy, but when it comes to bearings, seals, and stuff like that, yep, you kind of want them to be a little sloppy. So we're going to press our new hub into place. Let me grab that real quick. All right, so here's our brand new hub. And so we're going to put some grease on this part here. And then we're going to get our press kit set up and push this into place. We're going to be putting a sleeve that fits the inside of our bearing. I'm going to show you here real quick on this one. So we're going to be pressing in on this part here, and make sure we got good light. Yeah, so this part here, we're going to be putting a sleeve on to push onto it, and then we have you definitely do not put pressure on this outside area. You'll break things. So right here, that's where we're going to be pressing to get our new hub into place. Once our new hub is in place, then we will get this other bearing over here. We'll get it greased up and put on. All right, so just a little pro tip for everybody. Yes, pro tip time. So these new bearings, they come with this plastic sleeve holding both sides of these bearings together inside of the new race. Now, what you want to do, keep this sleeve, do not discard it, because this is going to help you when you go to press in your hub into the bearing. So this sleeve here needs to fit over our hub like so. That way we can get the bearing pressed down onto it. What we're going to do is we're going to take this plastic sleeve that came with the new bearings, and we're going to keep that on the bearing. So look at that. Now our bearing is perfectly centered on our press. If we didn't do that, this is what's going to happen, unfortunately. Here, you know what? I'll just use this old bearing because I don't want to take that sleeve out of there just yet. So this is what's going to happen when you go to set up your why is everything so difficult to film right now? So what would happen if you didn't have that sleeve in there? When you're gonna put this on there, it's gonna want to slide around. It's gonna make things like 20 times harder. And of course, obviously, if you have this off center, you try pressing it on there, you're just going to probably get the bearing stuck or destroy the bearing. So yes, definitely pro tip, keep that sleeve and use it to your advantage when you go to press. All right. All right, and here's our setup for pressing the hub into the new bearing. Pretty straightforward. And now all we got to do is get our rear bearing greased up and get it pressed into place, and then it's reassembly time. So I hope this has been helpful. I may add some more comments, maybe some more voiceover or something to better explain what we have done here. What I did not want to do is bore you with, because a lot of this is time consuming, setting the presses up, and even just little things such as removing that axle nut. I don't think anybody wants to watch me do that for 45 minutes, or even watch a I could probably do a time lapse and speed that up. Simply put, okay, we now have our hub pressed into place and our bearings are all put in. We got some extra grease going on there. I did grease the half shaft and the splines and the threads, and let's see, nice and tight. Good, that feels great. All right, so other than that, it's just reassembly time. It's gonna bolt everything back together, and remember this upper bolt here is cambered, so we want to make sure we put that back in the same place, and we did mark it. So yeah, this project is almost done. We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Really, we got like 6 bolts to put back in this. So we will be done here in the next probably 15 minutes or so. And then we'll go for a test drive. And hopefully that has gotten rid of some vibration and some humming and stuff at high speed. Well, not really high speed, but around 60, 70 miles an hour. Hopefully it's quiet everything down. Okay, here we've got everything slipped into place. Nothing special had to be done. It was just a matter of pushing or compressing the half shaft just a little bit and getting the splines lined up with the hub, which you can just rotate the hub just a little bit. And all right, so now we're just going to finish putting all our bolts back in and tightening everything down and torquing to spec. Okay, we have all of our bolts put in and torqued down to spec. The only thing we have left to do is we need to put the axle nut on, and then there's this little slot here. We're going to take a punch and smash down this little ring part right here into it, put our wheel on, and then go for a test drive. Yep. Oh, I got to get my wire off of the spring here. I don't leave my special wire. Okay. All right. That's all I've got for now. And after my test drive, then I'll report back, let you know if it cured the crazy noises and vibrations.